Welcome back for another deep dive into the news. Today we have a pretty wild mix of AI stuff, the ethics of consciousness, and even potential changes in education policy.
It really makes you think about how technology is shaping every part of our lives, even our values.
Exactly. We'll be looking at news about China's new AI, DeepSeek, that Guardian piece about AI consciousness, and Elon Musk's possible involvement with education reform, according to the New York Times and CNN.
Those are definitely some big headlines with some big implications to unpack.
Definitely. So first up, DeepSeek. It seems like it came out of nowhere to challenge OpenAI's spot as the top dog.
And even more interesting, some sources say it was built using OpenAI's own data.
It does make you wonder how that happened.
It definitely raises some eyebrows. I mean, if that's true, it makes you think about data security and intellectual property and what innovation really means in the AI world.
And not to mention what it means for the balance of power in AI development.
Right. It could mean we're moving from a Western-dominated model to something more global with different values driving how AI is developed.
Which brings us to that Guardian article about AI consciousness. Researchers are actually worried about the possibility of AI experiencing suffering.
It's a big question. Like, if AI becomes conscious, do we owe it anything morally?
Do we have to try to prevent it from suffering?
That's a whole other can of worms. Some experts say that consciousness has to be biological, but others say if it's complex enough, AI could get there.
So it's not even clear if AI can truly be conscious or not.
Exactly. How do we even define consciousness? Can machines really feel things the way we do? It makes you question what it means to be human.
Which, in a strange way, ties into that story about Elon Musk maybe wanting to get rid of the U.S. Department of Education.
I can see where you're going with that. Some people think the government isn't doing a great job with education.
Right? They think it's inefficient or biased, and they want more control over their own choices.
But getting rid of such a huge institution would change so much about how we see ourselves as a society, how we share values and goals.
It's like that Jürgen Habermas quote about how we need shared meanings and reasons to even exist.
I remember that one. He said, we draw from the, how do you put it, the linguistic infrastructure of our world.
That's it. And that's built on shared meanings, shared reasons, and education plays a huge role in creating that, especially in a world that's more and more driven by AI.
It's about more than just teaching facts. It's about critical thinking, understanding different perspectives, having real dialogue. Those are skills we need more than ever with AI becoming so powerful.
So without education, are we losing that shared reality, those tools for the future?
It's a real possibility, and a scary one.
Speaking of ways to learn and share ideas, that flipped conference model from Daily News sounds interesting. It's all about more discussion and less just sitting and listening.
That's right. People read the papers beforehand and come ready to really talk and dig into the ideas.
It's much more interactive than the usual conference format.
Definitely. It could change how we share knowledge in academia. Imagine people actually excited to go to a conference.
Makes you wonder if it could work online, too. More accessible, more engaging.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see.
So moving on to some news from the philosophy world itself, we have two big names to talk about.
Christer Segerberg, the logician, sadly passed away recently, and Anna Marmadora, the metaphysician, has moved to a new position at St. Louis University.
Both are pretty big shifts in the field, especially with Segerberg's passing.
Yeah, it's a reminder that philosophy is always changing, adapting.
And that brings us to that APA blog post marking their 25th anniversary.
You can really see the changes in philosophical thought and practice in the last 25 years.
Even institutions dedicated to thinking about these big questions are evolving too.
They have to, right? The world's not standing still. And it's not just big institutions. Individual philosophers make moves, too, that kind of ripple outwards.
Yeah, like how Segerberg's work influenced so many. And Marmadora's new position could change the focus of a whole department. It makes you think about all the other stories happening behind the scenes.
Exactly. And speaking of stories, you shared those two pieces from a philosopher's blog that really got me thinking.
Oh yeah, the ones about safe injection sites and redrinking water, both tackling some pretty tough problems.
Yeah, each one is like, how do we deal with these really complex situations ethically?
The safe injection site article really challenges the way we think about drug policy, doesn't it?
Totally. It's like, okay, we know addiction is a reality. So how do we minimize harm? How do we balance individual choice with societal responsibility?
We don't usually think of safe injection sites as a middle ground, but that's kind of what they are.
Right. Trying to find some kind of compromise. It's definitely not the traditional just say no approach.
Then you have the redrinking water article. Another totally different problem, but still about adapting to a changing world.
And it makes you confront something kind of visceral. Like, are we really okay with drinking water that's already been, well.
Especially when water is becoming such a precious resource.
It's like, how desperate do we have to get before we change what we think is acceptable?
Both articles, in a way, are about that.
Mm.
How do we adapt our thinking, our values even, to deal with these new challenges?
And that's where philosophy comes in. It's not about having all the answers, but having the tools to think critically and figure out what the right questions are.
It helps you understand the different sides of an issue and make informed decisions, especially when there's so much information coming at you all the time.
It's like a guidebook for navigating a world that's constantly changing.
And speaking of change, it's hard not to connect that back to DeepSeek and what it means for the whole AI landscape. It's a huge power shift.
Yeah, suddenly it's not just a Western game anymore. Different countries, different values are shaping the technology.
And it's a little scary, right? What values will be built into these powerful AIs? How will that affect things like government and even war?
It's like we're writing the rules for a whole new world. And those rules will have a huge impact.
We have to be part of that conversation, make sure AI is developed ethically.
Absolutely. We can be excited about the possibilities, but still be critical. Ask the tough questions. Demand transparency.
So as we wrap up our look at today's news, I think that's the big takeaway. We have to stay informed, stay engaged, and keep asking those questions.
The world's changing fast, and philosophy gives us the tools to make sense of it all and maybe even steer things in the right direction.
Okay, so we've talked about AI, education, even redrinking water. But let's go back to DeepSeek for a minute. What does its arrival really mean for the future of AI?
It's kind of a wake-up call, isn't it? We thought the West was way ahead in AI, but DeepSeek shows that's not necessarily true anymore.
And it's not just about who's ahead. It's about what values are driving the development of AI.
Exactly. If different countries with different priorities are leading the way, that changes everything.
Because AI is going to touch every part of our lives. Healthcare, education, even how governments work and how wars are fought.
It's not just algorithms anymore. It's about whose values get baked into those algorithms.
So if DeepSeek is like this power shift in AI, what does that mean for the future of innovation? More collaboration, more competition.
It's hard to say for sure, but it definitely highlights how important it is to have some kind of global agreement on AI. Like, what are the ethical guidelines? What are the rules of the road?
Otherwise, it could get pretty chaotic, right?
Yeah, it could. We need to make sure AI is developed responsibly, no matter who's doing it.
So it's not just about watching what happens. It's about being part of the conversation, shaping how AI develops.
Absolutely. Stay informed, ask questions, support organizations that are promoting ethical AI.
And keep thinking critically. Don't just accept whatever AI is put in front of you.
Exactly. The future of AI is still being written. We all have a role to play in making sure it's a future we want to live in.
And that's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive into the news that matters. Remember, it's not just about the facts. It's about understanding the bigger picture, thinking critically, and engaging with the world around you. Stay curious, and we'll see you next time.